أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحابه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. ربي لا تؤاخذني مما يقولون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون واجعلني خيرا مما يظنون. Bad. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to the House of Dua, the channel from which you learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about His creation, about His message, about His messenger, and of course, about His preferred religion known as Al-Islam, and the channel from which you learn how to live and be happy in the world we live today and how to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, expecting a greater happiness and success on the day of judgment. Welcome to another blessed day of Jumu'ah in the year 1446 after the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Today, we're coming to you with a very cautionary advice. Indeed, a warning to all of us about something that is self-destructive if it's not properly checked, about a major sin that many of us commit, and it comes with immediate repercussions on our lives, not knowing what is happening. We don't know that what we have done by ourselves is coming around to hurt us. Sins are of different categories. There are some for which you will be penalized or punished on the day of judgment. There are some that cannot wait until that day. It will definitely have some repercussion on you on this planet. Several of such sins. Today we are bringing you one of them, which is all pervading in today's world, to the extent that we're having several problems. There are people who are apparently doing well, but then they are unhappy. They are unhappy because of the effect of the sins they have committed, especially this sin in question. There are others too who take one step forward and take two steps back every day of their life. They think they are making it, but indeed they are not making it. They are just cycling around. There are others who are even bedeviled with problems arising from the consequence of this sin. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, that's why it's worth talking about in today's presentation. What sin is that? We're talking of the sin of breaking the trust reposed in you. Many of us find ourselves in the position of trust. We look for such positions, we campaign for them, and in some cases, they come to us just by merit or by chance. But more often than not in today's world, we fail to understand that that position is a position of trust. And if you don't discharge the obligations of that position properly, you are not going to wait until the day of judgment before you see the consequence. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, to abuse your trust or your agreement or your oath or anything that you are given to do as a matter of trusting you, including a promise you make with people, failure to discharge that promise is a big, big sin in Islam. So to fail to discharge this obligation is a sin that all of us must check against ourselves. In Islam, generally, it's called amana. And amana are of different categories. And amana is a very large subject, but it boils down to simple keeping and discharging obligations. Trust reposing in you by people. Who is that among us who will say he has never been given a trust? Just begin from your family, between you and your spouse and your children. Trust is reposed in you. What about people who campaign for offices, got elected, or got selected, or got appointed, or got assigned to specific responsibilities? It's a trust. What of the relationship between you and your employer? It's a trust. What of your relationship between you and your family members? There is a trust involved. What of your relationship between you and your community? Your community is building a road, or building a town hall, or building a market, and they, out of the many, identify you as somebody who should be trusted. And you go ahead and betray the trust. What about the organization you belong to? Which all of us sometimes we lobby to be chairman and all the rest. At the end of the day, we disappoint the people. What about the police who is asked to check crimes in the society? It's a trust. How well does it carry out that trust? What about those who are charged with the responsibility of administering justice in the court of law? It's a trust. But many of us get into abuse of this trust, especially when there's material thing to be gained, when there's financial benefit in it. In such a case, people are ruthless, they don't care, or at the very best, they use fronts or relations or people like that, or they use lobbies to lobby for them so that they will not be seen to be doing it. There are situations where trust may not necessarily be financial benefit. It may just be a kind distribution of values. Imagine you are in charge of employment and selection of candidates for your company. And when it is time for you to recommend candidates, you base that recommendation on what? Relationship rather than merit. It's a break of trust. What about you as a husband who promised your wife, I'll take you to the Hajj if you do ABC? And she did it, but you turn around and break the trust. We can go on and on and on and on. None of us can say it's free from this in today's world. That's why it's going to be difficult for any of us to enter Jannah. As the Prophet said, none of you will gain Jannah except out of the mercy of Allah. Your deeds alone will not enable you to go into Jannah, except by the mercy of Allah. But to get that mercy, you actually need to do some deeds to qualify. And dear brothers, my dear sisters, this is a very serious issue that all of us need to be careful about, because take a look at those who have gotten themselves messed up with abuse of trust. They live around you. Take a look at that. They may be financially well off, but you will not find happiness in them. There are some who are bedeviled with sickness right now as a result of the consequences of their misbehavior. Take a look at such families. You will not find offsprings of that family moving forward, in spite of the wealth the people have. Why? Because you are the architect of your own self-destruction. Allah forgive our sins. For such people, you don't even need to go far with cursing them or praying against them. It will hit them right away, because evil coil on the neck of those who plot evil. They go about in pomp and pageantry, parading themselves with arrogance, plotting to undercut the system. But such a plot will not coil on anybody's neck except themselves. This is what Allah says. Who is the victim of this? The society, your community, your organization, your employer. The money you are pilfering and taking away for your own benefit, either slicing it or cutting it, or in one way or the other, pushing it back to your own benefit. That money, where does it come from? Public purse. Either by budgeting of public funds, or by donation by the public, or by contribution by other people, or people paying taxes. That's where the money comes from. What was it meant for? For the benefit of the entire community. But you turn around by virtue of your position to say, you know what, I come first. I don't care what happened to the entire community. Then you are cutting back. You are kicking back. You are kicking sideways. You are benefiting your relations. And you think you will go free? No, you ain't going to go free. Allah will not let you go free. For such people, it is disgrace in this world. And on the day of accountability, it is even going to be worse. There are other people, they are given a position of trust. They come around and give you half reports. You give somebody money to buy a car for you. You bought that car at a very cheap rate. There is a difference between what you gave him and what he paid. When it comes to you and say, you know what, your money was not even enough. I added mine. It's a break of trust. Or you send somebody out to do something on behalf of your community. You give him some money. Oh, the money was not enough. I spent my money. Here are the receipts. Reimburse me. You give him. Allah says such people are eating to their belly fire. Allah save us from it. One day the prophet selected a man, go to a community and collect zakah. He went there, collected the zakah in full and brought it to the prophet. But in addition to that, he came to the prophet and said, this percentage was given to me as a gift. The prophet asked him, he didn't know you before. He said, no. If I didn't send you there, would they have given it to you as a gift? He said, no. Go and add it to what you collected. Go and add it to what you collected because that's an attempt to break trust. One day the prophet came from Medina into the Kaaba to use the Kaaba. There was a mushrik, a disbeliever, who was in charge of the key to the Kaaba. The family was in charge because the duties of the Kaaba are shared among the 4 major families of Arabia. He seized the key and ran away and said the prophet will not get access to the Kaaba. Finally, they got the key from him. The prophet used the Kaaba, came out. But one of the members of the prophet's family told the prophet, Ya Rasulallah, we better keep the key in our family so that we will be more powerful and prominent than these people. Take that right away from them. Allah brought the verse in Surah An-Nisa. Inna la ya'murukum an tu'addu al-amanati ila ahliha fa iza hakamtum bayna nas an tahkumu bil adl. Inna la ni'ma ya'izukum bi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered you, your Muhammad, and your believers as well, to discharge your amana. This key was given to this family as an original agreement between them. It is not you who will come and upset that agreement, honor that agreement, because it's an amana. And whenever you want to judge between people, judge fairly. Don't allow your emotions and personal relationship to dissuade you from judging fairly. So those who are in charge of justices in the court, they have an onerous responsibility to make sure that they discharge the trust reposed in them. It's a trust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is a good admonition, advice to you all. There are several verses of the Quran which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal to us what it means to keep trust, the consequences of not keeping the trust, and the effect it will have on you in this dunya and the akhirah. In Surah Al-Anfal, verse 27, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la takhunu Allaha wa rasulahu wa takhunu amanatikum wa antum ta'lamun. Oh, you have believed, do not betray Allah or betray His messenger. And don't yourself knowingly betray yourself by failing to discharge the amana, the trust that people repose in you. One thing, tell them, you know that what you are doing is wrong. Be careful about that. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 1, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uqudi. O you who believe, fulfill your obligations. Discharge your trust. Beginning with the obligation you owe to Allah. As I said, we owe obligation to Allah, to the messenger, to ourselves, to community, to our employer, to government, to everyone around us. Once you occupy the position of service to serve others, we say trust. And we owe Allah obligation to discharge the trust to repose in us. When before sending us here, he signed an agreement with us and asked the question, Allah's to be Rabbikum, am I not your Lord you are going to worship? And you reply, Bala Shahidina, yes indeed, it is you I'm going to worship. Are you discharging that trust right now? Are you discharging your 5 daily salawat? Is your kalma shahada in order? What about your zakah? What about your siyam in the month of Ramadan? What about your hajj? What about your amal uswalia? Are you discharging the trust? My dear brothers, my dear sisters, what about the trust you owe to the messenger? And when you say, you know what, I'm meant to be live or Rasul, I believe in Allah and I believe in the messenger. Are you discharging that trust right now? This is a matter that you can't go free from. In this dunya, the consequences of it will manifest in you. The man was called upon by the prophet to join in the battle of Tabuk preparation. The man told the prophet, I cannot go to the battle because I love women so much. If I get there, I might be distracted. I'll be a problem to you instead of fighting. Therefore, Allah to me, do not cause me fitna. Do not allow me to go into this difficulty because it's going to be a problem for me. But Allah sees his heart. He's actually not trying to keep the trust. The pledge they made to the prophet to defend Islam, and Allah told the prophet, tell him, Allah, tell him that he's already in that fitna. His suffering has begun by his engagement in breaking trust and being treacherous. We are human beings, yes, we are weak, but then there are certain things we do deliberately and we think that nobody can hold us accountable. You walk away. Yes, we may not be able to hold you accountable because we don't know what you are doing. You are keeping them away from us. But guess what? As Allah stated in Surah An-Nisa, yes, that fool na mina na yes, that fool na mina la wa ma'hum is a yubayitu na man la yarada minan ka. Yes, you can hide your affairs away from human beings, but you cannot hide them away from Allah. For Allah is aware, even at the time you are conceiving it in your chest or your mind, wherever you conceive it, Allah is aware. He will hold you accountable. There are many communities who are suffering today, who are the victims of this break of trust by their indigents and their citizens. Governments are failing because of this. Organizations are collapsing because of this. Families are getting divided, or some are even in a state of penury, suffering. Why? Because of break of trust. Imagine the community wants to build a town hall, build a road, and they assign some people to undertake their responsibility on their behalf with some money involved. But instead of doing it, they cut back. They convert the money to their personal uses. At the end of the day, who suffers? It is the community. It is the community. That's why Allah says such people will not go free. They will not go free. They are actually hypocrites. And Allah has promised that hypocrites, the punishment for them, be directly as fellow men now. They are going to be in the bottom of the hellfire where it is hottest. Because the action of those who break a man is actually hypocritical. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, let's take a look at some of the verses revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, warning us not to break a man, reminding us of the consequences. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says, الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون. Those who break their covenant with Allah, including your covenant with people, your agreement, your obligation, your trust, you break it, and that's one what Allah says. Such people are losers. People who fail to join together what Allah says should be joined together. You are breaking family ties. You are breaking the well-being of your organization or your community. And you think you can walk away free. In Surah Arad, Allah says, in the same similar verse, for such people is the most woeful part of final place of rest. It's known as Su'udah. That's where the person will end up. But in this world, the problem begins. And the person, they are already inside that problem right now if they don't change their way. And that's one old Allah, therefore, has warned that we should discharge our obligation as sincerely as possible. He also says, Inna shara dawadi inda la alladhina kafaru fahum la yu'minun. Those who are the worst of human creatures created by Allah are those who are disbelievers. And one of the examples of such disbelievers is alladhina ahadita minhum thumma yanquduna ahadahum. Those you make agreement with, and each time you make agreement with them, they go about and break the agreement, which is an attitude of the hypocrite. The Prophet, according to the Hadith, says there are three characteristics of hypocrite. When he speaks, he lies. When you entrust something to him, he breaks the trust. When he makes a promise, he does not keep the promise. So it's a hypocritical action. That's why Allah says such people will not go free. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in the same ayah we are reciting from Surah Al-Anfal, فَإِمَّا تَثْقَفَ اللَّهُمْ فِي الْعَرَبِ فَاشْرِدِ بِهِمْ مَنْ خَلْفَهُمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. When you come across such people in a battle or in any other form of interaction, be firm and severe at them so that those who are supporting them behind will learn example. That reminds us that those who are doing things like this, sometimes it's in conspiracy. It's in conspiracy with other people, and they are being used as fronts. So, all of them joined together will not go free from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala therefore pleaded with us. It's a commandment, but he's pleading with us. وَأَوْفُوا بِأَحْدِ اللَّهِ إِذَا عَاهَدْتُمْ وَلَا تَنْقُضُوا الْأَيْمَانَ بَعْدَ تَوْكِيدِهَا. Fulfill your obligations. Do not break your obligations after you have made them. Do not destroy your oath after you have made an oath. Especially and especially when you have used Allah as a witness in that oath. Aren't you aware that because we want people to keep to sincerity, to make sure they uphold their obligations and they don't cheat in service, they are made to swear to either the Quran or the Bible or the Torah, depending on the country. But even then, such people still go about breaking the trust, thinking that nobody sees them. But God sees them. God sees them and He will hold them accountable. Now you have used Allah as a witness. Now you believe that Allah is not seeing you. Allah is seeing you because in Allah knows exactly what such people are doing. And He also says, do not be like a lady. This time He's using feminine gender to explain, because to spun thread in those days was a specialized trade of the women. He said, don't be like a woman who spawns thread very nicely. At the end of it all, she got it shredded and scattered into pieces, making it difficult to get the thread back in shape. Meaning of this is that if you go about breaking the promise you make, you are actually causing confusion in the society, bringing the society back to square one. Just as that lady, after unspinning the thread, it makes it difficult for that thread to be reorganized. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, the Prophet in the hadith narrated by Shaddad bin Aus says, the first thing that all of you will lose in this din before the day of judgment is amana, trust. And he says losing amana is one of the signs of the end of time. And that's where we are now. That's why it's so difficult to see somebody who is righteous nowadays. Each and every one of us is guilty of this, because you make a promise, you turn around, you will not keep the promise. Ordinary keeping appointment with people. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who keep our promises. I encourage those of you who are assigned responsibilities to represent your government or organizations or communities, those who are assigned to represent your masajid, or those who are occupying other positions of authority or service in the life we live, discharge your man, because the consequence is right here. There are many people who are bogged down by one problem or the other, but they don't know why. There are many people who have enough to eat, but they have no happiness. That's one what Allah says. Do not use your own hands to destroy yourself. May Allah not make us among those who use our hands to destroy ourselves. Alhamdulillah.